and welcome back to Vancouver. There you see Stanley Park and the North Shore Mountains. Of course, Vancouver playing host to the 47th Vanier Cup. It is 2 days before the Grey Cup. They are finally pairing up the two national championships together in one weekend during Grey Cup weekend. That's something that we're looking forward to. If you want more information on it, go to 2011 GreyCupFestival.ca. You can find all the info you need about the Vanier Cup. Now it's time to take a look ahead at what could happen in the CIS in terms of a preview. Let's take a look at the favorites, and Chad Klassen is with us. And Chad, you had the opportunity to take a look ahead and a little bit of a look behind as well at what happened in 2010.
Yeah, I looked at all the teams. As we talked about, we're only 2 weeks into the beginning of this 2.5-month journey to the 47th Vanier Cup to be staged right here in Vancouver for the first time. It's going to be a fun battle right till the end. We've got the defending champions in the class of the CIS, Laval, the past two Vanier Cup finalists from Calgary, and a Western team that's looking to break through and erase some of that disappointment of seasons past. Here's a look at our top CIS contenders this year, starting with those defending Vanier Cup champions.
The Laval Rouge et Or got back to the top of CIS football last November, and they'll try to successfully defend their title for the first time since 03-04. Kevin Constantin enters his 11th season at the helm of the Rouge et Or, who lost 7 players to graduation from last season's championship. But most importantly, the quarterback spot is intact with Bruno Prudhomme returning. He threw for over 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns last year, but he's also got help in the run game with Sebastien Levesque, who finished 3rd in CIS rushing last year and was a monster in that Vanier Cup win. On defense, the Rouge et Or are led by hometown boy Freddie Plassus, who had 3 picks last year and has already established himself as one of the best defenders in the country with his abilities to make plays all over the field. But for the team, history's proven that it's not easy to repeat. But don't be surprised if you see Laval in Vancouver come late November. The Calgary Dinos come into the year 3-time defending Canada West champions, but they still have some unfinished business. 2 straight Vanier Cup losses has Blake Nill and his crew motivated to get back. Gone are Eric Glavich, Nathan Kuhorn, and Anthony Parker, but the Dinos still have plenty of talent. Another Eric Deluski, is now the starter at quarterback and is very much like his mentor Glavich, a pivot that can make plays with his arm but also pound it on the ground. He was 7th in Canada West rushing last year with a 9-yard average per carry and earned himself the CIS Rookie of the Year. And Calgary's backfield is still formidable. 5th-year senior Matt Walter leads the way. Walter won the Canada West rushing title in 08 and 09 and finished 2nd last season to Regina's Adrian Charles with 763 yards on the ground. Stephen Laball is also a threat to score, leading the Canada West already in rushing with 314 yards and 3 touchdowns through 2 weeks. And rookie Jake Hardy replaces the likes of Kuhorn with his flash and dash on special teams. Don't forget about the defense, though. It's a tenacious group that likes to swarm the ball. They forced 12 turnovers last year and are stacked with 2 former Rookie of the Years. Defensive tackle Lyndon Gaydosh, who was the CIS Rookie of the Year in 09, and Waterloo transfer Jordan Verdoni, who was named Rookie of the Year in the OUA that same season. It's a defense that will give them another shot at the Vanier Cup. The Saskatchewan Huskies haven't been to the Vanier Cup since 3 straight appearances between 04 and 06, but Brian Towers has them in contention every year. This season will be no different despite a change at quarterback. The Lawrence Nixon era in Saskatoon is done, and now it's up to Jelani Gilbert-Noren, an athletically gifted quarterback that will stress out a lot of defensive coordinators around the Canada West. He isn't afraid to scramble out of the pocket to elude pressure and move the sticks. The second-year pivot is also an accurate passer that can really help the Saskatchewan offense. On defense, the Huskies also have a bunch of big playability, leading the Canada West in interceptions with 14, and they were also first in the conference, forcing 20 turnovers a year ago. Bryce McCall leads the charge in the secondary. His 17 career INTs puts him 4 back of the CIS all-time record of 21 interceptions. They finished first in the Canada West the last 2 seasons, but just haven't been able to get by Calgary. The Huskies will try to change that in 2011. In Ontario, the Western Mustangs are looking to rebound after narrowly missing out on a Vanier Cup berth last year in Laval. Greg Marshall's squad will set its sights on another Yates Cup and will do so with 4th-year quarterback Donnie Marshall controlling the offense. Marshall threw for nearly 1,500 yards and 10 TDs last year and is looking to win a championship with his dad watching on the sidelines and his brother Brian catching passes for him. You'll be in for a treat this year, handing the ball off to first-year running back Tyler Varga, who is the top-rated running back in the nation by Canada Football Chat. In just 2 games already this season, the 18-year-old true freshman out of Kitchener has 7 touchdowns, which tops the CIS. Western is favored in the OUA, but the Mustangs want to bring home their 7th Vanier Cup title back to London this season. The McMaster Marauders are also in the mix. They're in the middle of a 7-year drought since winning 4 straight Yates Cups, and the university hopes to break through in 2011. There are 16 returning starters from the squad that lost in the conference semifinals to Western last year. 6 are on offense, including quarterback Kyle Quinlan, who returns for his senior season. He put up over 2,000 yards and 19 touchdowns last year, and it was good enough for 2nd in the nation. Quinlan is joined by returning running back Joey Nemeth, who was a 2010 OUA first-team All-Star, and receivers Michael DeCroce and Matthew Parasini. Linebacker Ryan Chemlewski leads the defense after a 2nd straight OUA first-team All-Star nod. Overall, McMaster finished 2nd in the conference in rush defense, holding opponents to just 761 yards, and they were 1st in interceptions with 18. The road to the Vanier Cup is never an easy route, but with the experienced group, it's not out of the question we'll see the boys in maroon in the Vanier Cup. The big game kicks off November 25th under the lights of the newly renovated BC Place Stadium. That we know, but the next 2 months will determine which team will be crowned 2011 Vanier Cup champions in Vancouver.
A lot of buzz here in Vancouver about the opening of the renovated BC Place. Of course, the Lions and the Eskimos in the CFL, they open on September 30th, but the following weeks, it's Vanier Cup on November 25th, and of course the Grey Cup on November 27th. Jim Mullin back here with us, CIS analyst, I guess we could call you. November 25th, obviously that huge date, the championship game. Who do you see in that big game?
Oh, I love predictions. Predictions are just fantastic, aren't they? Because CIS football really is so unpredictable. At the start of this season, I had McMaster edging out Western in the OUA. Look what happened this last week. Western went into McMaster's house and blew them out. So the Western Ontario Mustangs, with their opportunity to advance to the Vanier Cup, if they win the OUA, they would go through Atlantic Canada. I see Western on one side of the ledger. At the start of the season, we took a look at the Regina Rams and the Laval Rouge et Or being the 2 respective powers coming out of their conferences. That hasn't changed in Quebec, but when it comes to the Regina Rams, they've lost Mark Mueller, they've lost their backup Dylan Hart, they are in all kinds of trouble right now. They could even make the playoffs with a 3-5 record and have Mark Mueller come back into the lineup after that injured shoulder, and they could make a run. That's how wacky the Canada West is right now. But pound for pound, in terms of discipline, in terms of execution, right now the Saskatchewan Huskies look to be the favorite coming out of the Canada West, and that would set up a rematch of the 2006 Vanier Cup, which would mean the Saskatchewan Huskies would host the Laval Rouge et Or, and Laval came in and won in Griffith Stadium in front of 11,000 fans. So I think it's flip a coin time when it comes to that bowl game. So right now I'm leaning toward a Laval and Western final, but you can't count out the Canada West at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be upset. The Saskatchewan fans back in 06 were upset 13-8 for the Rouge et Or. You talked about Western. Obviously, it's the year for them. Donnie Marshall's in his 4th year. He's got a lot of weapons. Tyler Varga, as you saw in the highlights, is just a beast. 7 touchdowns, and he's probably going to lead the league in rushing this season in the Canada West. What about Western? Can they knock off Laval, the powerhouse? Yeah,
Western Ontario, if they do manage to make it through to the Vanier Cup, have lots of depth at the running back position. You mentioned Tyler Varga, only an 18-year-old, and that was an amazing effort that he pulled off against McMaster. They also have Nathan Riva, who's in his 5th year. Donnie Marshall used to have the nickname of Donnie Don't, but it was Donnie who did against the McMaster Marauders. So Donnie Marshall, I think, really benefited from playing with Team Canada at the recent World Championships. Got exposure to some very top-flight coaching, and he's making better decisions.
Obviously, Laval, a powerhouse, as we've talked about, they're going to be there as far as the CIS semifinals. I want to jump to the Canada West now. You talked about Saskatchewan, and I think the X factor for me is going to be Gilbert Noren and his ability. Obviously, in his first year as a starter, how do you think number one's going to fare for the Huskies?
Jelani Gilbert Noren is a quarterback that, at least he's the type of quarterback that people have never seen at the University of Saskatchewan. Here's a guy that doesn't put his head down and try to drive towards the sidelines. When he's running out of the pocket, he keeps his head up. He keeps his options open as he looks downfield, and he's always dangerous to throw on the run. He's someone who is a total game changer in this Canada West Conference.
And now, Saskatchewan, the Huskies have had a lot of trouble in the last couple seasons getting past the Calgary Dinos. Dinos, three-time defending Canada West champions. How does Saskatchewan get past the Dinos?
Well, right now at the Calgary Dinos, they do not have the speed that they had in past seasons. When you take a player like Anthony Parker out of the lineup, he's moved on to the Calgary Stampeders. Nathan Kuhorn is another player that's moved on to the Edmonton Eskimos, both top draft picks. Calgary is playing a much more conservative offense, but we also saw against UBC how they came back. So new stars are stepping up, like a Stephen Lumbala, the younger brother of Raleigh Lumbala of the BC Lions. How do the Saskatchewan Huskies get by? I think they need to have a few tricks up their sleeve, and Jelani Gilbert Noren might be that trick.
Great transition into your top 10 this week, Jim.
That's right. The FRC CIS top 10 this week. No surprise that Laval is up top. Western in at the second spot. And the significant thing about Western being in that second spot is they actually got 2 first-place votes. Last week it was Laval taking a full sweep of the 30 votes. Sherbrooke in there at number 5. And surprise, surprise, down at the bottom of the list, the Windsor Lancers, after their big upset win, that 40-41 win over the Laurier Golden Hawks that tossed the Golden Hawks all the way out of the CIS top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. What a fantastic game. Odd ending to that one, but Windsor into the top 10. Just wanted to bring up attendance across the CIS. Obviously, in these parts, UBC has been a good story, a feel-good story with their resurgence early in the season. Seems like they're going to be contenders here. But what about, I mean, we've seen a lot of fanfare through the first 2 weeks of action. We know Laval, we know all about Laval and their attendance, but it's been all across the board through the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, take a look at this. When you take a look at the numbers on the board, here are your top 5 attendances in the CIS. Laval with over 16,000. Western drew 10,500 to their first game. Saskatchewan with a record setter of 7,390. Their stadium was in capacity. It was 20% over capacity. 14 of 23 games over 5,000. So that's so far so good for the CIS right across the board. Really, it's the Quebec Conference that has tied this all together. They lead in average attendance with 5,800 per game.
Well, let's hope that Laval or Sherbrooke end up here in Vancouver, because that would be a lot of fun with all the Quebec fans coming here to the newly renovated BC Place.
I think there are a few people in the Canada West that would care to differ with you, because Quebec has to go through the Canada West to make it through.
That's right.
So we'll wrap up here, but we will point out to you that this Saturday on Shaw TV, we have the Saskatchewan Huskies against the Manitoba Bisons. Manitoba with their first win of the season against the Alberta Golden Bears last week. You can see that on Shaw. It starts at 1 o'clock local time in Winnipeg and right across the Shaw network wherever you're tuning in. For everyone on CIS Countdown, I'm Jim Mullin saying see you next time.
CIS Countdown is brought to you by Canada Safeway. Canada Safeway is a proud sponsor of the 2011 Vanier Cup, November 25th in Vancouver.